Hey everyone, welcome back. I trust you all well. And yeah, today, as you can see, I'm sitting in my garden, blooming and flourishing, awaiting the special day we call Valentine's Day tomorrow. So we all know it's the month of love. And I know for a lot of people they hate this day because it's very commercialized. But I like to see the positive in these things, and I think it's nice that we celebrate things such as love and that we, make something of it, even if it's for just for the fun of it. So today I bring you a word today, but I'm not doing a devotional today. I just decided I'm going to share something from me with you. Um, One of the scriptures that I came across last week while I was busy with my fasting. I'm just so grateful to the Lord to, have spoken to me through such a powerful word that He gave me. And I just wanted to share it with you because it's an old story that I think we all know from Sunday school. And I just had a new perspective and a new take from this whole story. And I just wanted to share it with you. So the story that I'm referring to is a story from Genesis 14. It's the story of Joseph, and particular this story, the part where he is in prison. So, like Joseph was envied by his brothers, and long story short, his brothers actually sold him off to some people, and through everything, Joseph ended up in prison. And while he was in prison, there was two servants of the king, which was the chief Kabera. So a Kabera is basically almost like a butler, and in some of the other translations they refer to the Kabera as a butler, as well as the chief of the chief baker, which I assume he was in charge of all the baking and the food and stuff for the king. So somehow they ended up in prison with him as well for that period of time for whatever reason, which is not known. And then we the story plays off where they're there, and then they had a dream one night, and then Joseph took note of them, and he asked them if there was something that he said there somewhere. It says, "Why are your faces downcast today?" So, which tells me he was a very observant person, very compassionate person, that he wanted to know why were they worried, and then they shared their dreams with him, and he decided then, and what this was so amazing, he said to them, they gave him the dream, and he said, which was so amazing to me, it stood out, do not interpretations belong to God. So first of all, he gives honor to God, even though he had this gift to interpret the dream. He gave God the honor, and he asked him, did interpretation do not interpretations belong to God? So he made also them aware that this interpretation is actually given from for him from God, actually. So they needed to acknowledge that, because sometimes we tend to use our gifts, but we do not acknowledge or give God the honor, because it's only through him that we can have these gifts in the first place. And but Joseph pointed that out to them, gave God the honor, and he gave the interpretation to them. um as you read the story, if you take time to read the story yourself, the cupbearer, he gave him the interpretation that in 3 days that he will be released, and the king will appoint him again as cupbearer. And he then said to Joseph, Joseph said to him, "Only remember me when it's well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to the Pharaoh, and so get me out of this house," or prison, in that case. So that is the one thing that he said to, which was very important to remember now. He said that was his words to him. And then to the chief baker, he also gave them, but unfortunately his fate was quite different, and he explained to him that he will be hung. Um, you know, and I can just imagine the baker thinking, this man is crazy, it's ridiculous. And I think, in general, I think they both didn't believe him. But as it had it, 3 days later, they got released. And 3 days later, what he interpreted became true, because the cupbearer, in actual fact, got reappointed, and the baker who also got released, was hung. And so we don't know the story behind the whole thing and why, but I mean, that's not important right now. The point is that the interpretations that he gave them was correct. So what happens now was the baker of Achtichi, the cupbearer, he was obviously happy, and he actually forgot about Joseph completely. And then 2 years passed. 2 years passed. And the Pharaoh, the king, had a dream. Very disturbing dream, which he couldn't interpret. And he had psychics and priests and all kinds of people who can interpret things come and try and explain to them, but none of them could. And it just happened to be that the cupbearer heard of this, and he suddenly remembered Joseph. And what was so amazing about this whole story was the fact that, about the cupbearer, was the fact that he went to the king and he told the king everything. And he actually had said that he had forgotten about, Joseph, and he admitted to that. And I thought that was a very a noble thing to do, in a way, because he could have just said, made up some story and, said, go ask him, or whatever. But just the fact that, I think, he remembered that, this man had faith, and he spoken, this onto him, and he could actually then return the favor like Joseph asked. And I imagine he felt very bad about that. He only remembered that because somewhere it also says he confessed to the Pharaoh that he had done something wrong, that, in terms of like forgetting, and so he told the Pharaoh, and long story short, Pharaoh had him come in, and he gave the interpretation of the dream. And the interpretation of the dream was basically telling the Pharaoh that 7 good years were ahead, where prosperity over the land and everything will be prospered. There will full harvests and everything. And then for the next 7 years that will come, there will come a drought, and there will come bad times ahead and stuff like that. And the king obviously had to appoint someone that will be able to manage this situation that was coming. And it just happened to be that he felt that Joseph was the right person for this. And Joseph was quite high up in the ranks. Like, the king appointed him in a very high place for him to make very important decisions. And he was there. And as the story goes on and on and on, the 7 years came where everything was well and good. And then 7 years came where, as in his dream, things turned for the worse, in terms of droughts and stuff like that, and people were hungry and all of that. And Joseph was in power. And then Joseph's brothers moved to Egypt because of their situation, obviously, where they lived. It was not good anymore and stuff like that. And then their paths crossed again. Somehow one day they recognized, Joseph recognized his brothers, and And you would think that he would then just ignore, or this was revenge, or, and karma, like we all in our human way sometimes, we seek to find our revenge. But God did something amazing in Joseph's life, and that was for him to find peace and forgiveness. Because what happened next was that he instead of being revengeful or whatever towards his brothers, he opened up his heart and he welcomed his family back into his life, where actually I would say his family was saved because of him, and of his kindness and his compassion and his love towards him. But I think the most important thing to take note is that I think Joseph was not particular loyal to his brothers, whatever. He was loyal to God, and he did what God expected him to do. And I think in this, the story is so amazing, because I think we all need to take note of this, because we all go through, I think, some point in our lives what we are challenged by things that will break us down or will put us in prison, or people that even turn their backs towards us and walk away from us or sell us off, whatever the situation might be. And we will find ourselves sitting there, and then many times God brings in situations where we need to grow, and we discover our gifts, and we discover a new side of us, and then our situation changes completely. Everything changes if we are obedient to him. And then the challenge comes again when we are faced sometimes with our past. We need to face our past, and then we're challenged and facing our past, and to see what our reaction is be. I mean, like I said, Joseph could have completely taken this situation in his hand and said, listen, you did this to me, I'm gonna get you back, and you deserve this. But he didn't. And I think for that, God even blessed him even more. And I think it was no coincidence that God chose Joseph, because he knew of his heart that was so pure, despite of everything that happens. And sometimes, we are placed in a that seems sometimes as the most terrible thing, and because it happens, and not because particularly it's God's will. I don't think God wants us to suffer and go through all the things, but God can save us from our suffering, and he would, but it's all also got to do with how we react within our present time, and the time when we are in our present, in our growth during that time when it's very, very terrible. And I think because of Joseph's obedience and the way he reacted to certain things, God saw that, and he blessed him even more. So I hope that you are reminded next time when you feel like you're in prison and life is unfair and people have treated you some way, that you can think back about Joseph and his situation, and you'll be able to find that peace and comfort in knowing that God will make things all work out for the best, for the better, and that we only need to seek him and his love in order for us to bring everything to completion. And with that, I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will catch up with you again. Have a good one. Bye.